Hello and welcome to Unfiltered Eat Better, Think Better series. This is where we get real about our emotions, mindset, connection to food, and healing, and what it really takes to break free and feel good in your body and life again. I'm your host, JD Shah, and in this series, I sit down with everyday people who faced challenges with their health, their body, their mind, their confidence, or long held beliefs that have held them back and found powerful ways to rise and grow through it all. These are real stories, no filters, no fluff, just raw conversations about what they struggled with, what actually helped, and how they created transformation from the inside out. So, whether you're on your own journey or just curious on what's possible, you're in the right place. So here's to eating better, thinking better, and living a phenomenal life. Let's go. So today's conversation is with someone who really embodies what it means to trust your gut, to listen to those quiet whispers, that intuition that can really change the course of your life. And we're going to be speaking to Alma today. Alma's journey has been has been anything but linear. So, a little bit of background from losing her mom to abdominal lymphoma and then facing her own health crisis of developing diabetes through the stress and grief of it all, and then later pancreatic abdominal lymph nodes. I hope I said that right, which could have led her down the same path as her mother, to then experiencing a pretty traumatic hand injury that would have ended her chiropractic career. She had every reason in all these situations to really give up or to give in to fear and not do anything about it. And yet she didn't. Instead, she chose to listen to her intuition, to her faith, to the signals that her body and life were sending her. And she learned to surrender, something that we really want to talk about today. And that led her to not only heal herself, but to find new ways of serving others, whether it was through WildFit coaching, through advanced neurological chiropractic care, or simply showing people what's possible when you actually now become your own best advocate. And I am so grateful, Alma, that you are here today to share your story because this is about more than health. It's about that trust. It's about the courage to pivot when life demands you to do it. So, Alma, welcome, and I can't wait to dive into this. I want to actually just start because you've had multiple chapters where life could have gone very differently for you. There was the health crisis you went through, your health, your career. Looking back, what's the first moment for you where you felt that little nudge, or let's say God's whisper guiding you, and you found the courage to surrender? When was that first moment for you?
I'd have to say that was probably when I was in university doing my undergrad. First of all, thank you for inviting me. I just feel so special that you would think of me and allow me to share my story on this medium here. It's one of those things that I feel like everybody has a story that they need to communicate, and if it's something that someone can resonate with and make their life better, like how amazing is that? So thank you for having
Yeah,
this particular podcast.
you're so
Back
welcome.
back when I was in university, let's backtrack. When I was a child, I had these migraines, and I remember having a really bad headache almost every day for about 6 months when I was a child, when I was about 12 years old. And I went to every specialist to try and help diagnose it, and nobody could come up with an answer for why I was having these headaches. So my pediatrician basically told me that I just didn't want to do my homework and I was making the whole thing up. And it was frustrating because, I was a good student until I started getting these headaches and there were no solutions that we could find. And so one day, my dad, who had a back injury from lifting these heavy boxes, he had a printing company. So he had a back injury and he went to go see this chiropractor who was working in the same building as he. And so when I was there helping him, I tagged along, obviously. And this doctor looked at me and he said, "Well, you have a headache." And I remember my dad just throwing his arms up in the air and saying, "I don't know what's going on. Nobody believes us. Nobody can find out what the problem is." And so this doctor cut out a chunk of time out of his schedule and sat there with me for about 15 to 20 minutes to do an exam. And that's probably about 4 times longer than any other practitioner had actually spent with me. And he
Wow.
said, and my nickname was Amy, right? So he said, "Amy, is your headache coming from here?" And I said, "Well, yeah. How did you know?" Because every other doctor prior to that, I was pointing to this spot saying my headache was coming from here. And he gave me this reassurance. He said, I think I can fix that. And so I was just like, okay, yeah, whatever. I didn't know. And he gave me my treatment. And all of a sudden, boom, the lights were brighter. That tension just melted away from my head and my shoulder. I had better vision. Like it was just so remarkable what happened in an instant. And I realized that this is what I wanted to do, is to help other people who had pain. And so I was only 12 years old and nobody had ever heard of chiropractic before. So anyone would ask me, what would I do when I grew up? I said, well, I want to be a chiropractor. And then there came that whole explanation of what is it? And,
What it
why are you
is.
choosing that? Why can't it just be a regular doctor or a physio or something like that? And I was just
Yeah.
directed. So when it came time to apply to chiropractic school, there's only one chiropractic school for English speaking people in Canada. And it was about 5 minutes away from where I lived. It was so convenient for me to go there. And I was just so excited. And I had this passion to go and I had good grades. And I applied and they said no. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's not my time right now. I'll apply again next year. And I applied the following year and they said no. And by this time, my chiropractor who got me into all of this was getting really frustrated because he's like, I don't understand why you're not getting in. So third year, I'm there applying again because I don't really have another option. I had just my whole life focused on this. And on the third year, he said, okay, you're going to apply to this school, but I want you to apply to the 3 top schools in the States as well, so that you have a backup plan because you can't afford to waste any time. I had already completed a degree. So I was getting a second degree in my undergrad, waiting to get into chiropractic school. And so what happened was when I got my results back, they said no again. And so I thought it was just fate for me to go down to the States because every single school in the States, the top 3 wanted me. And there was one
Wow.
school that was about a 10-hour train ride away from Toronto. So I could hop on a train and get back home over the holidays if I wanted to. And it also had a very parallel curriculum as the one in Toronto. So I decided I would go there because they offered me Canadian tuition at par. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to spend the extra 25% in tuition to go down there. I'm already spending extra money for living expenses, but maybe it's my destiny to go down to this school. And so that was the
Yeah.
first time where I was just like, I could have given up. I could have said, okay, well, let's see what's available in physio, or whatever else was around that would be considered, a parallel profession with chiropractic. But,
Yeah.
everyone was rooting for me. My chiropractor was rooting for me. And he's like, no, you're destined to do this. So
Yeah.
don't just focus on the Canadian school. If you really want to do this, think outside of the box. Let's apply elsewhere as well. And it was the best thing
Yeah.
that I could have done.
Wow. I love that. And, 2 things really stand out for me there. One is, like you said, never give up. When you just know that you're meant to do something and you have to do it, when the time is right, you'll get there. But also, too, never give up. So often we find in this world, we'll do something for a short period of time, whether it's a weeks or a month, and then be like, okay, it's not meant to be. But when you just know I'm meant to do this, don't give up. But the second thing that's so important is the fact that you had this headache this whole time and so many people couldn't diagnose it, but you found someone who did. And I think that whenever we're experiencing unease in our body, whether it's a pain or a discomfort or something happening, and we just go to the doctors and we don't find a solution, that doesn't mean you're stuck with it or that's inevitable, right? You will find someone. And I think at least now in the day and age we live in today, well, chiropractors are very well known. So that's great. But there's also all these other modalities that are available and around. And a lot of the ancient arts are coming back, ancient Chinese medicine, acupuncture, um, Ayurveda, all these other different modalities are now really readily available for us. So anyone who's listening who is kind of going through discomfort and pain, don't give up if the doctor says, well, we can't figure it out. So that's just you. You're the person with a headache. But find the solution.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have patients coming in all the time who have been dismissed by their practitioners because they can't figure out what's going on. It doesn't mean that their symptoms are not real. It doesn't mean that they don't have an underlying issue. It's just, I think we're looking in the wrong place. And often the answers are within that patient. I mean, they say 90 or 95% of your diagnosis comes from the patient's history. So if you just sit and listen to what actually happened in life, and it could have been recent or it could have been many years ago, just to kind of listen to that instinct from that patient. Well, what do you think is going on? What do you think could have started all of this? And, how has your life changed? When was it that things started to turn for you? And if you kind of dig into that line of questioning, you usually are able to uncover one or two gems that can lead you down a different path that maybe someone else has not really considered yet. And it's so valuable
Yeah.
for a patient to feel heard. It is so
Yeah.
valuable because when that pediatrician told my parents that she didn't believe me and that I was making up the whole thing and that I just didn't want to do my homework, it was such a foreign concept, because why would we lie? Like, what benefit do I have to seek attention in this manner, right? So,
Yeah.
luckily, like, my parents were with me. They understood me. They knew who I was, and they dismissed that. And they continued to maybe not actively search, but just keep the conversation open, so that if there was a situation, it wasn't like, okay, well, now we got to start all over. It's just kind of simmering at the top, and something's going to come along, and some way it's going to help you. We just got to figure out what
Yeah.
that is. And so while it
Yeah.
wasn't our top thing to focus on, it was still prevalent, because, like, in the summertime, it's the middle of June, and I'm squinting like this trying to collate paper because I can't keep my eyes open because of this headache.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
there was someone there that was a gift
Yeah.
to my life, and he still is a gift. His name is Dr. Peter Mackay. He lives in San Diego. He used to be the chiropractor for the Blue Jays way back in the day.
Wow.
He should be retired, but he loves what he does, and he's just an active practitioner down in San Diego. I've had an opportunity to visit with him a few times, and he's on my phone, every Father's Day, or something special comes around.
Yeah.
I'm always on the phone with him. He's just such an important person in my life
Yeah.
now. And yeah,
Amazing.
God gives us
Yeah,
angels.
they do. Yeah. That's amazing. Maybe you could take us through now that first transition for your health, where you really recognized that you needed to surrender and take care. And that time when your mom was going through that difficult period, and if you're okay talking about it, what that felt like for you physically, mentally, and emotionally to yeah, to lose a loved one in a really difficult way.
I guess it's a combination of desperation, um, sadness, frustration, um, helplessness. I had
Mm.
all those feelings. As a practitioner, you hope that you help people who are in pain. And well, big C, and we can't treat that, but we can support the individual who has these symptoms. And so my mom had lymphoma about 10 years prior. She got her, she had a lot of abdominal issues in spring of 2017. And I remember I was in Phoenix at the time when my sister called me and said mom was admitted to the hospital. Sorry, was it Phoenix or Las Vegas? I can't remember exactly. I was at a seminar, and the seminar was for frequency specific microcurrent. And I had taken the instructor training. I had done all, like, within the previous year, I had done every single course available in this modality, because it was just a natural way of the body to increase energy at a cellular level. And it was such a wonderful way of helping to reduce pain. And so I was at this course, and I just put all my money down and bought a few extra machines. So when I got back to Calgary, um, my husband and I were in a position that I just pre-booked weekly tickets across the country, because I was in Calgary and my mom lived in Ontario, in Toronto. And so every weekend I would fly out in the evening after my last shift of the week.
Mhm.
And then I would stay there at the hospital with my mom for a few days. And I'd be giving her everything that I had, like, I had microcurrent, I had laser, I had all these other things just to try and help her with her pain and get her comfortable. And I bought these extra machines, and and I programmed them so that when I came back to Calgary for my work week, someone there would be using it for my mom. And then I would come back, and we just kind of cycle through that and try and make her life comfortable. At that time, she didn't even know that the lymphoma had come back. We just knew that she had some really bad abdominal issues. And then later we found out that it was the lymphoma that had returned, and they had given her 5 years. And this was her 10th year after her first
Wow.
episode. So we thought she had beaten it and everything was great. And then we learned all of this, and things quickly turned around, and it was really sad. I felt like this was the first time when I was actually trying to help someone. I don't know if it was really helping her, but it was all that I could do in my wheelhouse of skill sets that I felt that I could give back and help her. And unfortunately, she did pass. And then we had, within about, I think it was like 3 weeks or 4 weeks after that, that time when she was admitted to hospital. And so it was devastating. I had a lot of questions about, like, why am I here if I can't even help my mom, and all of that. And it was very stressful. It was stressful, but not because I felt like physical stress in my body. I was just emotionally into this whole grief cycle. And I don't know when it happened, but there were times when I couldn't even get out of bed. Like, I was just really exhausted and tired. And so I thought, well, I haven't had labs done in a number of years. Maybe I'll just go to the medical doctor and see what they are able to discover in my labs. And I don't know if you know what the borderline is for diabetes. They used to say, like, if you're at about 6.4, you have to question things. Now I think it's about 6 in terms of your blood sugar levels. When they got my fasting glucose back, it was 15.8. So I was off the scales. And so this doctor said I had diabetes. And I'm like, okay. You have to be on medication. I said, no, I don't do medications. Like, I remember back in chiropractic school, they said if you take 3 Tylenols in your life, your risk for kidney disease increases by 30%. So because I had so many pills when I was a child, I just cut every chemical out of my body in chiropractic school because I was learning about all of these side effects for different medications. So what I thought was okay, I realized that, even small amounts of things over time can accumulate. And so I said, okay, well, why don't I just change my lifestyle, right? I'll eat better.
Can
I'll
I ask you
become more.
something?
Yeah.
Just before that, which I was just interested because you were talking about before how doctors, if they just took a chance to ask you about your recent experiences or your life in general, do you think there could have been a possible correlation that if a doctor at that time had sat down and asked, have you experienced any stress in your life recently, that could have affected the sugar levels?
I don't even think that was a question, actually, to tell you the truth. However, it was, for myself, even because I'm a practitioner, I didn't even go down that route. Like, because I never thought that diabetes, even though, it's so logical that it's one of those things that comes up when you're stressed. I get that now. But in that mindset, when I was going through the emotional, reconciliation of what just happened, I never thought that the stress I was feeling as a result of my mom passing was in any way related to a pancreatic issue. Like, I had compartmentalized pancreas separate. And in hindsight, I went back because it was years of me trying to deal with this diabetes and my blood sugars weren't changing. So I had to go back and relearn what is it that causes a spike in blood sugar levels. And I realized that the adrenal glands also are involved with blood sugar regulation. And that's when I pieced it together for myself. And I don't think it's a common thing that people know that lifestyle stresses, but they think diet and eating poorly is the stress that impacts your blood sugar levels. And I'm here to say that while that is definitely the case, you can have emotional stress that can alter your blood sugar levels. And I'm living proof of that because that was happening to me. I was not like, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't have bad lifestyle. I have healthy support systems. I have a
Mm.
wonderful career that I've always wanted to do my entire life. I'm helping people. Everything was so good. Yet, why were my blood sugar levels so skewed? And like years after the diagnosis, I still couldn't bring my blood sugar levels below 8.4, 8.5. So I was
Right.
on the medication, and those nights when I slept really well, like I had a deep sleep, all of a sudden it come down to about 8. So I'd be like, okay, something has to do with my parasympathetic nervous system and me going into this deep relaxation, coming away from stress. And that's when I'm like, okay, well, how do the adrenals work with blood sugar? And then I had to go back and say, well, that's why didn't I even think about that? It's right there in the textbooks, right? And I
Yeah.
didn't see it before, but then I had to explore and kind of figure that out for myself. And
Yeah.
so I guess I started getting these abdominal pains in my,
Mhm.
and they were sharp, random pains, just like a little jab here and there every once in a while. I'm like, this is kind of weird. And because it was in the mid range there, and I knew my pancreas is there, I'm like, okay, well, let's just go get an ultrasound. So I went back to the same doctor and I said, can I get an ultrasound? She said, yes. And she's a good doctor because I just have to ask her what I need and she'll do it for me.
Yeah.
So I'm not fighting that uphill battle, right? So she was like, okay, yeah, for sure. Let's go get an ultrasound done. And this was at about the time when she was trying to get me on cholesterol meds too. And I didn't want to go down that route because I knew that my cholesterol was going up, possibly from side effects from the medication that was already on, and the fact that my
Yeah.
blood sugar was still not normalizing. So I didn't want to put another medication into the mix because the first one wasn't really working as good as I thought it would. So that was kind of like a conversation that I had, that where I had to kind of say, you know what? I'm going to just pause. Let's just see what this ultrasound says. And then they found these peripancreatic lymph nodes. And that was it for me. That was like, okay, I don't know what else I can do here that can help me manage my blood sugar, now my cholesterol. Now I've got lymph nodes around my pancreas. Like, is that, like, I was frightened because my mom died of the abdominal lymphoma.
Mhm.
So was I going down that route? Or was it a peripancreatic issue, which was a lot worse and a lot more scarier, because anybody who has pancreatic diseases or knows about pancreatic diseases, they happen really, really fast. And,
Right.
I was very scared. I think I had just like on the cusp of being about 50. I know I look very young,
Yeah.
but had to put that in there. But
Yeah.
yeah,
You
it was
do
just
though.
it was just around that time. And so I just,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what happened, and I just
So
decided.
what is it that shifts you from that point? Because you see, at that point, there's two ways, right? It's very easy to just then turn into victim mode and be like, oh well, now this is it. Why does everything happen to me? This happened to mom, it's gonna happen to me, and we can fall into that victim sort of mode.
Yeah.
But then there's the other route, which you took, and you took this situation and turned it into an opportunity as well. And I'm just curious what was going on in your mind, or what was the mental shift that may have taken place in that moment for you to not fall the victim.
It was really hard because at first I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that
Mm.
something like that would happen to me. I mean, I'm all about natural health. I'm all about trying to figure all of this stuff out. I'm proactive. We found this early. All these different things started going in my mind. And then I started thinking, well, my kids are really young. Like, if I have the 5 years that my mom was given for lymphoma, I won't see my kids graduate from high school. I won't see them get married. I won't even know if they have grandkids. I have so much work left in my life because about 50, I want to say 10 years ago, I earned my diplomate in chiropractic neurology for a different reason that was related to my daughter. But I had so much work to do. So I just didn't see how it was so logical for this event to happen in my life when I had all these other things stacked up saying that I needed to do work. And
Mm.
so, yes, there was this sort of fear initially. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is what's going to happen. Okay, what do I need to do? Well, I've done the medication, I've done the ultrasound. The medication's not working. Like I was stuck between a rock and a hard spot. I didn't know what to do. So I just said, you know what? Faith is going to help me. I am just going to let go, because sometimes I've learned that when I'm pushing and pushing, kind of like back when I was applying to chiropractic school, I had this goal going to that Canadian school, and I was
Yeah.
going, and I was hitting a brick wall. Nothing was happening. And I kind of felt that parallel again, where I feel like I was just going down this road and nothing was happening. So I just said, you know what? I'm just going to let go. And I just prayed that I was going to get some sort of message or revelation or something I was going to see that was going to give me a sign that I needed to move in a different direction. And I got that because I saw an ad on Facebook. And this is very weird because I don't even know how to use social media very don't
Yeah.
use it. And it was just one of those things because I had a Facebook page for my clinic. And so I just every, few weeks maybe I would log on and see if anyone did anything on it. And I happened to log in and I saw this, fix your sugar cravings in a week. And it was a challenge. And I said, okay, well, maybe this is the sign. So I did that program. It was a free program. So I did the program. And of course, there was the upsell to do the WildFit 90-day challenge.
Yeah.
And, I know WildFit has been an important part in my life because from that challenge, I was able to see so many changes in my health that, it happened so rapidly that I became a WildFit coach. But that doesn't mean you just have to do WildFit. You have to listen to your body. You have to listen to that internal dialogue that you're having and figure out what you need, like really figure out
Yeah.
what you need. And so, yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah.
And within 7
Wow.
weeks, it was in week 7 of starting that WildFit program that my blood sugar tanked to 4.6, I think, or 4.7.
Wow. When
Yeah.
before that you
And
couldn't
then
have got it below 8.
I tried everything. I couldn't get below 8. And it went down to 4.7. I was at a seminar in Vancouver. It was the middle of COVID when this happened. And I was just, I even took a little screenshot of my, like on my, of
Yeah.
my glucose monitor, because I was like, oh my gosh, like, is this for real? And then the following week, it kind of like I cut my medication in half. Now, guys, don't do that. Make sure you're always talking to your doctor about it. But, I kind of felt
Yeah.
like I'd been in this long enough and I knew what I needed to do. And so I cut my blood sugar medicine in half. The next week, I was still in the 4s. So I got rid of it. I finished the program. I went to my doctor's again and I said, I want new blood work and I want another ultrasound and I want to know what's going on. And she didn't recognize me because I looked so different.
Yeah.
And so I got the blood work and everything was pretty much normal. My cholesterol had gone down to normal. My blood sugar was normal. My A1C was normal.
Yeah.
Everything was absolutely normal on my labs. And I needed that because I wanted to see the objective changes, not just how I was feeling. And they did the ultrasound and they couldn't find the lymph nodes. So my body had healed
Wow.
and I was just so excited. And I
Yeah.
knew that teaching people how to have control of their bodies
Mm.
through diet and lifestyle was
Yeah.
something that I really needed to become better with in my practice. And I mean, I used to sell all this nutrition. And then there was a time when I was just like, well, my nutrition is like an outside in medication. I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm not really a believer of that.
Mm.
So I think I let go of about $5,000 worth of nutrition and inventory one day, just overnight. I said, I'm not doing this anymore. And then this came into my life. So now I use the principles to help coach patients who have, um, I guess, crisis in their
Mm,
labs.
yeah. I think that's just incredible. I mean, this is the way the universe works sometimes. And also thankful for ads, right? And also I say this because this happened in my own journey as well, is that, sometimes I'm actually happy that my phone is listening. Because back in 2020, when I was complaining about my health and complaining about my weight and how I wasn't feeling good or happy in my body, I was so glad that Google was listening because then it also gave me an ad to to WildFit, and I saw that, and that's the turning point in my entire life and my entire health journey. And same for you. You saw that ad and you took it as a sign, um, and then just went into it, and that changed your health trajectory. I mean, look at that. No diabetes. It's possible. For anyone listening here, this is your living proof that it is possible that if you're a type 2 diabetic, you can also at some point later on be non-diabetic. And
Absolutely.
there's just this power in surrendering. And I love how you said it, that it can sometimes just be simple as just take a step back and stop doing something. It doesn't have to be some grand, massive, big gesture, but just stop for a moment. Don't actively try to pursue something. And then whatever does come up, look at it with awareness, an open mind, and curiosity. And then the second thing that I really loved that you said was it's really about listening to your body. And you mentioned this in when we were chatting before, is becoming your own advocate.
Mhm.
Making sure you are taking health into your own hands, taking control of it. But that's often easier said than done, right? And I'm curious about what you learned about letting go of control and just allowing the next steps to unfold, as well as, what is the difference between fear and true intuition? Because sometimes we can be so blocked by fear and not
Mm.
hear that little gut signal saying, no, but Alma, I really think you need to check this out.
Gosh, that is such a wonderful question because I think there's just sometimes fear is a catalyst to
Mhm.
bringing that intuition stronger, having you hear that voice louder in your body. Um, you mentioned my hand injury earlier in the conversation. And, as a chiropractor, I rely on my hands for everything. And every like first Wednesday of the month is my patient appreciation day in clinic. So it's the day when all my senior patients come in as well. They get a little discount on their treatments, and I usually give out flowers. So everybody goes home with the flower, and there's always chocolate or fruit or something there that is, just making everybody happy, and they get to take that home as a little gift. And so I remember it was the first Wednesday of the month 3 years ago in July, and I had carried these beautiful Gerber daisies into the clinic in this vase. And I had a new puppy, and this is like a 55-pound new puppy that saw
Wow.
another dog across the way when I got out of the car. And he decided to run after that dog. And my other dog, who's 65 pounds, I was holding in the same hand, both of them in one leash, and the flowers and the computer bag and everything. And I just got pulled behind them and lost my balance. And I face planted behind a parked vehicle on the concrete, and the glass just shattered into my hand. And, um, it was kind of a little bit of a blur as to what happened, but I just remember picking myself up, going into the clinic, saying, okay, it's all fine. Don't worry about it. I had this like gash in my forehead and all this glass in my hand. So I just went into the back room. I got a bucket of warm water, soaked my hand in it, just started picking out the glass. Like it wasn't even registering that it was actually painful. I think I was just in
Wow.
shock. And then I saw a little bit of white stuff in there, and I didn't know if it was bone or tendon. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe this was deep. I should probably go urgent care center. So I went to
Yeah.
the care center. I waited a couple of hours, and they gave me 26 stitches across my hand and around my fingers where
Wow.
the cuts were. And they said, come back on Friday. So that's what I did. I came back on Friday and the guy looked at my hand and he said, well, everything's fine. You know, you're really lucky I took you in. And he said that a couple of times during that initial visit. You're really lucky I'm taking you in. You waited 2 hours. You're actually on the wrong side of the ER. You should be on the other side. But if I let you go now, you have to wait another 2 hours before you could be seen. So let me just look after it here. I'm thinking, oh, this is a blessing, right? That I'm getting this care done. So he stitched me up. And then on Friday, I came back and he said, yeah, the stitches are good. Everything's good. Come back and see me next week on Friday to get the stitches out. I thought, okay, this is great. And I'm like practicing as this one-handed chiropractor now in clinic because I couldn't do anything. My hands all wrapped up. And so I had these instruments and I didn't take a day off. I was just working. And the following Monday, I unwrapped the bandages and my hand looked like, you know, sometimes you're in the pool really, really long and all of your skin gets white and waxy. Well, I had that in my entire hand and I got really scared because what if this is turning into an infection? So I went back to the ER and I remember it was a Monday or Tuesday. And I said, this is what it looks like. And I'm really concerned because my hand is very painful. And she said, what did the hand surgeon say? And I said, well, nobody referred me to the hand surgeon. This was a different doctor I was seeing. Oh, you need to go see the hand surgeon. So she got me in for an appointment that afternoon. And I went and saw the surgeon who did another set of x-rays. And he said, okay, come back on Friday and we'll take a look at it again because you're going to be getting your stitches out. So after your stitches are out, come back and see me. So I did that. And now this is the third week. I'm going back to the hand surgeon on the Wednesday. And I said, you know what? Something's really bothering me about this. I have a lot of pain. And I know I have a lot of pain because of the wound, but they couldn't even take my stitches out. They had to put a nerve blocker in my hand to numb my hand so they could pull the stitches out because it was so painful. So I want to see those x-rays. So they pulled up the x-rays. They were done in 2 different clinics and 2 different radiologists had read them and told me that I had a fracture here and had a fracture here. And I looked at the x-ray and it wasn't even 10 seconds. And I said, this is not a fracture. This one here is a piece of glass sitting in my hand.
Whoa.
I had it for 3 weeks.
Oh
And
my
so
gosh.
the intern was like, yeah, okay, let me get the surgeon. So the surgeon came in and he's looking at the films on the computer screen. He said, well, I guess if it was lead glass, that could be glass. Want me to open it up? I'm like, well, yes. So he opened me up and he saw this big piece of glass about the size of my index fingernail just embedded into my finger. And apparently the ER doctor that did me a favor for helping me helping me stitched right over it.
Oh my goodness.
Didn't bother exploring any of that. And so this doctor saw it and he's trying to pull it out because it's stuck in the bone and he's trying to pull it out in pieces. And he's like, oh, that's interesting. And I said, what? And he's like, well, it looks like you've severed your ulnar nerve and tendon, your profundus tendon in your finger. But luckily they're guillotine cuts and I could still approximate them and stitch them up. You want me to do that? Surgeon asking me.
Yes.
Yes, of course. And I said, but here's the thing. I want you to open up my other finger because this is the one with the real fracture. And because the cuts happen like this, and there's a parallel cut right here on this finger, I want to know if that is damaged as well. So he opened me up and it was the same thing. And it was both the nerve and the tendon had been cut there. So he stitched me up. Now that added weeks to my recovery and immobilization and became a big process for me to reconcile. Why was it that I had to be seen by that doctor? Why didn't I listen to the fact that, I took it as a positive. Oh, I'm here to help you. Look, I'm saving you 2 hours. You should be in the other office. I didn't hear you should have been in the other. I just heard I'm helping you.
Yeah.
And so I had to actually, luckily for me, I knew how to read x-rays. So I had to advocate and ask to look at my x-rays. And both radiologists from both clinics diagnosed it the same. Maybe because they thought that that was really a fracture. I'm sure that they did, but they could have, the second radiologist probably read the report for the first one and concurred and just wrote that out. And maybe didn't look at
Yeah.
the cancer, right? Like from a fresh perspective. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what happened. And
Yeah.
I
Wow.
advocate, and then I realized after the fact that perhaps the reason I had to go through that was because
Mhm.
I have patients who don't have those skill sets. And so now what I'm doing is anyone who has trauma and who has x-rays done, I'm actually getting the images in my clinic so I can take a look at them and give them a second
Yeah.
opinion before they just run down whatever. And most of the time, all
Yeah.
of the time, it's fine. But I know
Yeah.
that somewhere there might be that one case that I might be able to, um,
Yeah.
you know, just troubleshoot or intervene at the right moment so that they don't go down this path.
Yeah. And I think there's always learning in all the experiences that we've had, and you've had your learnings from this experience. But also, again, it's that part of just listening to your body saying, look, there's something up with my finger. And also the other one too. And yes, it added weeks to your recovery, but it's given you years more use of your hand, which you would have otherwise lost and not been able to do, what you love. So really, really great share there, Alma. Thank you. And just as we wrap up, for someone who's listening, who might be in the middle of their own uncertainty or pain right now, what's the first thing that you want them to know in like a sentence or two sentences?
It's there for a reason.
Mm.
Well, you have challenges in your life. It's there for a reason, and think of it as big picture. Don't think of it as this is happening to me. Why is this happening to me? And kind of go into the cycle of, that downward, you know, I, I don't even know how to explain it. Like if you look at that whole situation where I had tried so hard to get into chiropractic school in Canada and I was
Yeah.
destined to go to the States. Well, I went to the States and I learned so much more than I would have learned in the school in Canada because they were
Yeah.
teaching things according to the scope of practice in Canada. And had I not
Yeah.
gone to that school in the States, there was a patient that I had, and it was hard. It was financially hard. It was emotionally hard. It was so hard to be down in the
Mm.
States, and the curriculum was harder. And when I came back, I had that one patient. And the one reason why I had to go there was because of that one patient who
Yeah.
really it helped change a perspective on everything for me in life because things happen for a reason. If you
Yeah.
have pain or you have something going on in your life, be grateful for it that you've been given some sort of cue or understanding, and
Mm.
listen to our intuition because it won't go away. Like if you have a little whisper about something, it'll grow into a bigger and bigger and bigger whisper. It's like Oprah was saying. I went to one of the Oprah shows here in Calgary, and she's like, that small whisper turns louder and louder and louder, and pretty soon you get a swift kick in the butt. And unless you're paying attention, you
Yeah.
haven't really got the message for what actually is the reason why you're experiencing that. You haven't
Yeah.
learned what you need to learn yet. So
Yeah.
listen to that intuition, listen to that gut, and always think that there's a bigger reason why this is happening, not just what you're going through in the immediate.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's something I always apply as well in my coaching and with RTT as well is it's that first step of curiosity and creating that self-awareness for yourself. That's how you're going to pick up all these different things that are happening to you, even if the world around you or the doctors around you tell you, well, that's that. If you can just stay curious and advocate for yourself, take control for yourself, take control of your health, and just keep being aware and cultivating that self-awareness for yourself, that's when you'll be able to hear these whispers and then follow through before it becomes one big dramatic thing that forces you to listen in a way. So yeah, Alma, thank you so much for sharing your story today,
Welcome. You're
for
so
all the
welcome.
hard, messy bits. And as we close, I would love to ask you a question that I ask every guest because it always brings a piece of truth that I feel stays with people long after they've heard it. So just the final question for you is, if healing had a voice, what would it say to you right now?
God loves you. It would just say that there is divine wisdom in the universe, whether you call it God or you call it nature, you call it, abundance or energy, whatever you call it, there is an organization in this world. And I believe that we are put on this world, in this world, and we are instruments of Him serving the community or contributing in whatever way we have as our service in the world. And
Yeah.
I believe God loves you and He gives you everything that you need to deal with any challenge that you have. He wouldn't give you a challenge unless you were able to deal with it.
Yeah.
And so I think that if we just embrace and look at it through that perspective, that, not why is this happening to me, but why is this happening for me? What is it that I need to do in this challenge that will help me grow or become better or help me serve better? I think that is the big thing, that just remember that anything that happens for a reason. And I firmly believe that we may not know what that reason is. It may come up 10 years down the road or, at the last breath you have in life, but there is definite reasons why we have our lives the way we do. And I just look at it as a blessing.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much, Alma, for joining us. And if this conversation resonated with you, helped you, or made you feel seen, please be sure to hit subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And come join our Facebook community, Eat Better, Think Better. It's where these conversations continue and where you'll find real people walking the same path. And if you're ready to go deeper in your own journey, whether it's healing your relationship with foods, shifting your mindset, or breaking free from beliefs that are holding you back, you will find more resources, support, and ways to work with me at www.eatbetterthinkbetter.com. So until next time, here's to eating better, thinking better, and living a phenomenal life. Let's go.